Welcome everyone to today's Business Leadership Speaker Series, where again I'm delighted to be joined by Rex Buckingham, Principal of Colour Thinking and Leadership Thinking Academy. I'd also like to welcome our students, academics and staff who are joining us online today from Torrens University, Australia. My name is Mustafa Kadir and I'm the industry consultant here at Torrens University. Before I start, I want to do a bit of housekeeping. If you're not on mute, please make sure you mute yourself and make sure your video is turned off, except for Rex. Today's talk is about leadership. We know it's a prerequisite to success on many levels, but what is and isn't leadership? We also know there is a clear difference between a leader and a manager, but what is actually needed for a culture of leadership to flourish? I was reading a quote today and it said, "The greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does greatest things. He or she is the one that gets people to do the greatest things." So we've invited Rex to talk about leadership and provide insights on how we can evolve and move forward as a leader. Rex has been consulting for the past 40 years. Prior to this, he was the former regional general manager of Hunter Douglas with up to 400 staff at the time. That was back in early 1980s, if I'm right, Rex, as well as being the marketing manager of General Credits and credit manager of GMAC. Rex has substantial background in general management, marketing, manufacturing, finance, project management, personnel and strategic development at corporate and business levels. Whilst consulting, Rex has initiated businesses in security, recruitment and floor coverings, becoming the largest floor covering business in 24 months from startup, which is absolutely phenomenal. He has seen life as a leader and has also seen the other side of leadership and people. Without further ado, I'd like to now hand over to Rex as our main speaker for the night. Over to you, Rex.
Thank you, Mustafa, and thank you for those who've been able to make it at 5 o'clock at night at the end of a busy day. Leadership is a major focus of mine. And I'm going to give you the Rex viewpoint on it. So we're going to talk about what is leadership, what isn't leadership, and what are the prerequisites. So I've got 19 slides here. We'll walk through, and we have got a question time at the end. Oh, that's good. Okay. It's not supposed to be an academic paper, so I'm not putting this up as something you're going to perhaps refer to necessarily. It's more about how to look at the way you think and the way you act and the way those around you think and act. So it may be a bit of a translator of some of the academia. There are no Harvard referencing. There could be some spelling errors in my PowerPoint slides, even grammatical errors. Don't be distracted by that. Just hang in there. I've got 13 years of corporate experience and 42 years of personal and business consulting, coaching and mentoring in just about any industry you'd like to think about, and some you mightn't even say out loud. The impact it had on this lost and desolate soul. Now, this is about me. I'm going to tell you a story about me, and this sort of underpins who I am. At 5, I went to a private school at much expense to my parents. And at 15, I escaped. I was probably the person who achieved least at school in academia and in sports. And the only thing I really achieved at school at the end of my school life was an incredibly good stutter. So I couldn't get a second word out. And so I somewhere found the focus to say to my headmaster, I'm going to leave. And he said, what a good idea. So this underpins everything I say, because when I left school, I applied for a position at Woolworths, and there was 31 people there, and they only wanted one person, and they employed me, and here I was, no academic, no nothing, no self-esteem, and not able to speak, and yet they chose me. Within 10 weeks of joining Woolworths, my stutter had completely gone. I'd signed up for night school, and at the end of the year, missing 2 years, I was third in the class, whereas I'd always been third to bottom all those years. Now that's leadership. That person saw something in me. They were able to find in me, help me find in me, things I'd never even considered before. And so that's why I'm so tuned up to leadership. So I'm going to put up some definitions here that you may not actually agree with. And you've got dozens and dozens of books and wonderful tutors. We all have different ideas about this. So just for tonight, let's just go with management is the identification of base needs and objectives of the organisation, resources required to achieve those things, the progress and risks in achieving and remediation of gaps, and a sense that this state is about control and responsibility. One of the challenges here is that people get to think that as the manager, they are responsible for the solution. And this is what gets in the way of leadership, that I am the manager, listen to me carefully, go away and do what I say, and then you'll be okay. And that's why we get so much pullback, because in that kind of behaviour, there's very little identification of respect for the other person. So the who and how is the difference between management and leadership. Now, again, you don't have to agree with this, but just hold it as your reference point while we wander through this 45 minutes together. So leadership is the connection to stakeholders, those staff, those customers and suppliers. It's all about connecting, about I know who I am, or I think I know who I am. I need to know what you know. I need to help you understand what you know, because we'll be better off when we know what each other knows. So it's a sense that this state is about facilitation, not ownership of solutions. So the little formula there is 1 plus a number should equal greater than the sum of the number. Let me explain that to you. I think I know what I know. I tell you what I think I know, and I hope you get it. I don't know what you got. And if I don't ask you, that's 1 plus a number. If I don't ask you, I won't know what you know. So all I know currently is what I think I know. But if I ask you what you know and I listen carefully, then I'm going to find out things and learn things that I didn't know or I knew and have forgotten. And now I've got more than I started with. And because you and I are now talking to each other and you know what I know and it's safe to talk to me, between the two of us, we are bound to get more than we both came in with. And that's through collaboration. So 1 plus a number should equal greater than the sum of the number. So 1 plus 1 should equal 3 or 4 or 5. And that's leadership. Ways to develop an openness to seek out and receive input, to use combined thinking of all concerned. This is not consensus. This is collaboration. This is not let's keep talking until we all wear each other out and in the end go with the weakest end argument. This is not consensus. To free up potential through honest respect, emotional intelligence, intelligent disruption, and adaptive leadership. So I'm saying that's what leadership is. I'm saying that in fact, the management one was base needs and objectives, resources, it's the things and it's the what and it's the when and the why and the where, whereas leadership is the who and how. I read this only yesterday. In a world of unrelenting change and unprecedented challenges, we need organisations that are resilient and daring. Unfortunately, most organisations, overburdened by bureaucracy, are sluggish and timid, which can crash creativity and stifle innovation. As leaders, employees, investors and citizens, we deserve better. We need organisations that are bold, entrepreneurial and as nimble as change itself. That's Gary Hamel and Michael Zanini. Very, very good thinking. And that's about sole traders and companies and micromanage and equally applies to micromanagement and poor behaviour. We need all those things to be picked up, and they get picked up by the leadership part of that management environment. Now, this is a real requirement for managers and manager thinking. However, manager mindset needn't be as grumpy as this picture shows. Now, I was showing this to somebody, and I didn't know who the photograph was, but apparently he's a soccer superstar coach. Well, I don't know how much openness he was showing me in his vision there. But it's about do as I say, not as I do. That's that management thinking. Listen to me. Listen to me. I'm not listening to you. Do as I say, not as I do. You may know people like that. Not open or inviting, more closed down, more own outcome driven. So I'm looking to highlight the difference between manager and leader. So analogies may be more pronounced. There can be melding of manager and leader in the one person, and there often is. The purpose of the webinar is to highlight the difference. So please keep your mind open as we continue. There's a real lack of requirement of leadership and leadership thinking. However, the trick is to define where each overlap and for there to be an overlap. That overlap can be flexible to individuals and to situations, but does need to be heading in one direction, away from command and control, to empowered and respectful expectation based on clarity and current capacity. And we have tools to help us. We have gap analysis and skills matrix and SWOT analysis and a whole pile of things that you people are learning about right now in the environment of management. But getting that right balance is so important, because the more information I have as an individual, the more likely I'm going to be wanting to tell you and not listening to you, much like I am now. I much would prefer tonight to have been more interactive, but this is the way it is. Now, some of you may have heard of AFL, Australian football, and you may have even heard of the Adelaide Crows. Well, a coach some time ago, or not that long ago, quite a successful coach, in fact, was Brenton Sanderson, and he was sacked. And he came up with a reflection on why he thought he hadn't been a good leader. And so I'm going to spend some time on this, because if you happen to be in a management position already, or you're going to get into a management position, it's very easy to judge people. To judge people when you see them, and to judge people after they've done things. They've done things good, and they've done the things that haven't worked. It's very good. It's very easy to get different attitudes about people, and even to play favourites. So we're going to spend a few moments on this one here. So on reflection, he said, after having had a stellar time, he came up with these 8 points. Now, I know I'm reading this to you, and I'm sure you could all read by yourself, but boy, it's just so important if we want to be leaders. He's saying, I didn't accept a variety of personalities. Leadership's about understanding who you have within my staff, and could learn how to get the best out of individuals by promoting two-way open communication. I didn't listen as much as I should have. I did too much telling. And that's a hallmark of managers doing too much telling. Crisis management, a coach must be able to pull a team together and allocate specific roles rather than attempt to control the situation. The harder it got, the more I tried to be in control more, which means by definition, putting other people out of control. You have to learn how to have and deliver the hard conversations. Most importantly, learn how to do this consistently. There is a time to be blunt and clear, but you must always follow it up, preferably within the next 24 hours, and never use sarcasm as a means to get a message across. Now, if I was to highlight a failure in management generally, and keeping in mind that I spent many years managing, and so a lot of this actually applies to me as I was learning lessons as I went through life, as I was being exposed to amazing leaders through my life. One of the things is performance management. Very often people are being judged and being reassessed, and they have no idea what's happening because people are too scared to have those firm relationships, those firm conversations with people. I was always promoting myself as an open door manager, but this wasn't consistent. In changing times, I shut key people out. And you know, that's what happens. When things get tough, managers are more likely to retreat because they are expecting themselves to be the solution. And if what they were doing wasn't actually working, then their reference point was all muddy, was all confusing. And because they often feel it looks weak to go out and ask other people what they think, then they may think I don't know. So I can't include them in my thinking. I've just got to keep telling people, and I'm probably blaming them for it not working. If I think about my corporate clients currently, time management is a thing that is really on many people's minds. I felt I was always time poor, but it was always more likely I just wasn't organised and I wasn't prioritising. I wasn't delegating. I found it hard to say no to external obligations, which I understand is part of the role. But I was reluctant to admit when I was struggling emotionally and physically. So as a senior coach, I burnt out. All of my people saw me burning out. My people saw me shutting them out. And so as things got tougher, things got tougher. I talk openly too often about finding and identifying the right people, which of course means we had the wrong people. And he was the coach. So if he had the wrong people, but they were the right people when he put them into, he's got to look back at himself as to the kind of behaviour he had with the people to turn them from the right people to the not right people now. I never really identified a key mentor for myself, someone I could trust and bounce ideas off and to talk to when I needed help. So if this today is about management and leadership is about being open enough to say to somebody, can you act as a sounding board? Can you give me some thoughts? What do you think about it? Can you help me? Not listen to me, I know it all. Because we know when you don't know it all. I spent more time with those executing their roles effectively while neglecting those who needed me most. Very, very important. Those 8 concepts, and I'm happy to share these slides, or Mustafa tells me this will be shared anyway. Very, very important. If you're going to go into a management position and you want to be a leader, then these things here will help you understand what to do and what not to do, and give you a sense of looking at yourself and saying, oh, I can see myself falling into one of those traps. He then went on to say there are 10 to 12 players who are going to play each week. Then there are 10 to 12 players who know they aren't going to play anytime soon. It's the 20 players in between who are in and out of the side regularly that you need to spend most time on and with. The 80-20 rule supreme. Now, I guess you've heard about the 80-20 rule, but it's the rule of inverse proportion. 80% of the team will just be the team, and 20% of the team will kick the goals. 20% of the team will always show up and will always be the ones getting the garlands for excellent performance. So it's very easy to concentrate on those people who are doing all that. But at the same time, we've got, in this case, say, for example, 100 people in the team, and we're only focusing on 20 of them. Then we're running a lot of people at a lot of expense, doing a lot of underperforming work because we haven't given them the right amount of time. Leadership is identifying how do I spend the time and how do I bring people up, not just how do I hang out with the people who are doing something good, because that's just not cost effective, but it also lacks serious integrity, because a leader is about developing people. A leader is about getting the most from the people so they go home each night feeling absolutely involved, absolutely respected. And those 80 who aren't will go home at night time and take into their homes, take into their families feelings of despondency, feelings of failure. And that cannot be good for any of the people associated with those individuals. Leadership requirements. Communication is the key. Listening and not shooting down. Now, by that, what I mean is, if I don't respect you, but I'm trying to be a leader, and I ask you what you think, there's every opportunity for me to find fault with what you have said. If you're one of the people who currently I don't hold close to me, one of those people that I might be sarcastic with, one of those people that I may well not have in my inner sanctum. Know that. And so when I ask you what you think, you will already be doubting how genuine I am about the question. And if you doubt that, then the information you give me as an answer to my question will most probably not be the best information you could give me. And the result of that will be I'll find fault with it. I'll shoot your information down. So that will push you further back in your self-esteem and will further confirm to me that you're not very good value. So I don't shoot you down. If I ask you a question and I don't like the answer, my job is to help you find more than accept what you gave me. So I'm going to ask you, okay, so have a think about it and let's talk it through a bit further. What else could you say to me about my question? Now, when you do that to somebody, you are showing them that you actually seriously believe they can contribute. That will lift their self-esteem and that will bring a different level answer. I can guarantee you, I've been doing this a long time. You can bring people up who are down almost in 3 conversations by showing them absolutely genuine consideration and not shooting them down. Have a think about how often someone says to you, no, that wouldn't work. Oh yeah, but that can't be done. Nobody gets up of a morning hoping to hear those words. So we don't shoot people down. We don't shoot our colleagues, our peers, our fellow students. We don't shoot our mum and dad, our brothers and sisters, our friends. We find ways of encouraging them past what they said so we can all understand more than what was given. That is leadership. Expectation of others is a key. We're expecting other people to shine. We're going to promote them to shine. We are encouraging them by asking them questions and not shooting them down. We are showing them we expect you to know. We expect you to have a different attitude, not a different attitude, yes, but a different opinion, a larger opinion. We expect you to be able to take into consideration other things that you took into when I first asked my first question. One of the challenges is in management, and it sort of sounds like I'm having a go at management, but I'm trying to highlight the difference in leadership, is that some managers need to be the centre of attraction. They need to be the saviour. They need to be the solution. They need to be the chief. It's a challenge for some, but they're not bad people. They're just been brought up. Their manager, their boss, their foreman, their senior person walked around all the time being the solution. So they think, my job is to be the solution. Well, it's not. My job is to have connection with people, to encourage and collaborate and get the best. 1 plus a number should equal greater than the sum of the number. Now, if you're finding any of this interesting, you might be making notes. Otherwise, you'll be hoping some of it might hang in. You'll hear as I go further through the slides that I'm repeating a lot of the same stuff more than once. That's because I know I learn more often when I hear things. In fact, I sometimes talk to people about a fellow called Edward de Bono. You might have heard about Edward de Bono, and if you haven't, Edward, D-E-B-O-N-O, an amazing thinker, a great psychologist, a great business organisational psychologist, and he has some really worthwhile thinking. So I'd be saying to you, it's worthwhile picking up one of his books. One that you may know is The 6 Thinking Hats, Edward de Bono. He's been here in Adelaide 5 times, and I've been to see him 5 times. And in those 5 times, in a meeting, maybe with 200 people, I could be the only person taking notes. Just amazing. They all paid their $200 or whatever. They've all put aside 3 hours to come and hear this amazing thinker. And they walk in, no notes, no notebook, no laptop, no way of capturing anything, just hoping that they're going to pick something up. Well, each of the times I've been to see Edward, each time, first time, 4 pages of notes. 4 pages of notes. I came back to my computer, I typed them up, and I sent them out to people, my clients and other people who I value. About a year later, I went along again. Edward de Bono, exactly the same presentation, exactly the same presentation, exactly the same presentation. Walked in, stage left, sat down, had a roll of film and some markers and started writing on the markers. No introduction, started writing on the markers, and he was on the stage for about an hour, maybe a bit more than an hour. He stood up and left. There I am with 4 pages of notes. Second time, 4 pages of notes, brand new notes. The first time I heard him, I was taking all this information in and writing it down and understanding it and not understanding it. By the time I got to the second presentation, I'd taken in some things, and so there was space in my mind to hear other things that he had said last time, because they were exactly the same presentations. Third time, fourth time, 3 pages of notes, 4 pages of notes, brand new things that he'd said the first, second and third time that I'm only now picking up. I would not have got hardly any of that if I hadn't been making notes. And that's the way I learn, but I'm putting it forward to you as being something to consider. So, a bit of distilling. The difference between management and leadership. A leader is focused on using the full force of all team members to identify and achieve the organisational goals. The full force of all team members. It's not about getting people on board with an idea. How many times have I heard a managing director or a manager or a senior person say, now we need to get the people together and get them on board with this idea. Now I'll just translate that for you. We need to get the people together and have them shut up, not contribute, listen and obey. We know that they will have objections to the things we're saying. We know that when you have an objection, you close your mind. We know, therefore, they won't hear half of what we're saying, and the bits they do hear, they won't want to have because they've had no respect shown to them in being involved in any of it. And so this will form most probably one of the 90% of projects that never achieve their objective. 90% of projects don't achieve their objective, and more often than not it's because someone's tried to get on board all the people who are in fact bored with the way of being managed. So it's not about getting people on board, it's about developing ideas with people. 1 plus a number should equal greater than the sum of the number. Definitely not consensus, but open-minded participation, collaboration, not necessarily led by the most senior person. You know, there's just so much to talk about in this conversation. Managers are brought up to think, you know, I'm the chief, I'm responsible, I'm the solution. The concept of leadership is wild and woolly. Of the 25 books you might read, of the 7 different kinds of leadership there are, it all becomes, you almost have to do a course to understand some of the course sometimes, because it's all so convoluted and so complex. But in fact, it needn't be. It can be, am I talking too much? And I apologise tonight because I am talking all the time. Am I talking too much, or am I asking and listening? Am I asking and listening and helping people grow their ideas? Am I helping people through my respect for them to think further than their first thought? So it's not about getting people on board, because that just doesn't work. It's about developing ideas with people, not consensus, but open-minded participation, not necessarily led by the senior person. So you might say, if I go into a company, if I'm invited into a company to consult, the owner or the managing director will always want to talk to me first. He's the most senior person. And he'll say, no, I suppose you want to meet my executive team. And I say, well, no, probably not. I want to go and meet the person who answers the phone. I'd like to go and meet one of your storemen. I'd like to go and meet maybe one of your salespeople. They are people I want to meet because I actually want to find out about the business, not about what you want to tell me. You want me to hear about your business. And that's all I'm going to hear if I talk to the people you want me to talk to. So often a person less than the most obvious person is the best person to to facilitate a session on what's working and what's not working. The difficulty for people in management at any level is to pretend that things are working even whilst they're not. Whereas if you ask the people who every day come to work and have to face up to the never fixed problems, they will start talking about it. And then with tools like cause and effect and gap analysis, and with the manager's wider experience, provided they don't take over, there's every chance you'll actually start living in leadership. Okay, so these require leadership skills. Management skills are about discerning, the tools to think with, the analysis and the clarity of the goals, and leadership is making sure that's as big and wide as it possibly can be. Okie dokie. We're about halfway through, and if there's anybody still listening, welcome, and I hope you're finding some benefit in what we're talking about here. One knows when management thinking is taking place. Now, you may have heard this. One hears words like, here we go again. Tried this before and it didn't work. No one ever asks me. And what should be there is, no one ever listens to me. And then what should be there is, no one ever gives me useful feedback. That can't happen with leadership when it's practiced genuinely, because there would have to be dialogue for it to be leadership. People say to me sometimes, we're thinking about leadership. We're going to get a major from the army to come in and talk about leadership, because they know leadership. I spent in the army when I was 20. It was a thing called national service. And what I found out in those 2 years was there was an amazing amount of command and control. In fact, a senior military person said to me, Rex, let me tell you about it. This is how it works. It's a matter of mind over matter. I don't mind and you don't matter. Now, they always put their leadership style up that when you come over the top of a trench, you've got to do as you're told in your training. You can't have a second chance to think about it, because otherwise you'll get shot. Well, unfortunately, we have a whole too much shooting happening. But the people who live are people who have learnt the tools, just like you will in management, and then found out how to work with the tools. Because one person going over a hill against the enemy will only survive really if they're acting as a team. And that's about leadership. So if leadership's being practiced genuinely, you won't hear those negative comments. I can't tell you how often a person's run a meeting where there's command and control, and they've left the meeting thinking, wasn't that a good meeting? Yes, people got on board with me, and I think we made some headway today, whilst the people around the table are walking out to the water fountain and saying, here we go again. Tried this before, it didn't work. And so the manager's walking away thinking, yes, this should work. And they're thinking, it's never going to work. So there's just no coming together. There is no team and there is no connection. So if there's leadership that's practiced genuinely and there's dialogue, there's every chance the conclusion that they come to will have, through the respect being shown and an ability for each person to see each other's points and not be stubborn, that you're going to end up with a solution that's got every chance to work. Hello, Mr. Arthur. I see you've joined us again, so I can actually see your face. Have you come in to warn me about my behaviour, or to give me a warning on time, or you're just visiting?
It's a fantastic session. I have actually been listening all this time. I just had my video turned off. But no, okay. You can continue going, but I've prepared plenty of questions for you, Rex.
So I've got a bit more to do, but we're getting close to the end.
No worries.
Question. And I purposely left questions because questions will show us where I've hit the mark or where I haven't hit the mark, where I've been clear, where I've been muddy in my conversation. So I'm looking forward to the questions. I just got to get this to move down, don't I now? Oops. Oh, what happened there? Oh, hello there, Chris. I've just pushed the wrong button, Chris, so hang in there. Okay. What's that? Okay. Emotional intelligence has been around, I don't know, 10, 15 years. Daniel Goleman's written a whole lot about it. And so I've sort of encapsulated the Buckingham colour thinking bit of emotional intelligence. Open, inclusive listening, useful, positive feedback, suspension of judgment, clarity in speaking, tackling difficult discussions, guarding against emotional responses, and working first on oneself. I think the most intelligent client I ever had was the managing director of a very large defence company. Most intelligent person I ever knew, and the most lacking emotionally intelligent person I ever knew. And when I was working with him, and you'll see a testimonial on my website from him, he said to me, Rex, he said, I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. I've been told all my life how clever I am. I've got positions way above my age. I was in the military, and I was the first person in various roles because I was so intelligent. But no one ever explained to me that I was also excellent at disconnecting people, that I was always relying on my own capacity, and that the value of people was hardly ever being picked up. And so he really got to understand the inclusivity of being a good leader as against being an incredible manager, because the manager thing didn't just work to the same extent. Now, recently I was looking at my LinkedIn profile, and someone popped up, a fellow called Bob Buchanan, and I connected with him because he had the title Intelligent Disobedience. Now, I don't know if this comes up in Torrens University language, but I thought that sounds like me. They've given me a title, the Intelligent Disobedience. And then I was reading Bob's book, which I purchased, and he was kind enough to interact with me. And I found on page 11, I'd written 3 pages of feedback for him where I was arguing with the man who'd written the book. So he maintained his continued friendship with me, and we sort of worked out some stuff that I was either misunderstanding or he could have said differently. But the key thing I find when I'm consulting is the cancer which comes with management of a thing called preemptive think and group think. And that's when people are sitting around a table and they are in awe of the person leading, in awe because they're amazing, or in awe because they are a rough manager, and they can be downgraded and handled badly if they don't agree. So people tend to nod and agree, which is why people think people are on board, because people are nodding and agreeing. And that's called groupthink, and I see it all the time in executive groups, in boards, in social clubs, in anywhere people meet. Rather than disagreeing, they agree at the moment and then disagree outside the forum. So intelligent disobedience is making it okay for people to disagree, encouraging people to disagree, openly discouraging people from agreeing. Anything but having people mindlessly nodding their head in agreement when the conversation hasn't been fulfilled and the options haven't been addressed or even identified. So intelligent disobedience is, I think, that we have to really focus on. And what tends to happen, and I can tell you this because I'm very old and I'm very experienced, I can tell you, people invite people to meetings who are going to agree with them, and they don't invite people to meetings that are going to disagree with them. And then they wonder why 90% of projects fail, because the people who they should have been listening to, they didn't. They disconnected from them. And so what they ended up with was a whole lot of people who had said yes, and the idea can never, ever be as full with 5 yeses than with 2 yeses and 3 nos, or 3 maybes, or let's think about it again. So we need, this is genuine leadership, helping people to feel safe to not agree. Now, I've got to put in here one of my really major concerns. Part of the reason I'm still working at my age is because I love it. I have a beautiful wife, 2 children, 3 wonderful grandchildren. I eat and I drink and I work. And my work is what makes me difficult with my family, and I think makes me useful in my family. But I have a focus on youth suicide, and I have a focus on domestic violence. And so bullying, harassment and discrimination are areas which happen in most groups of people. And they become authorised. So if you think about it, all of you people now listening will know of bullying or harassing situations, or would have been even the party of it, and maybe even given it, because I think it's part of our culture that sometimes if we're passionate, we can be a bit like a steamroller, we can be a bit of a bully, and we can disregard other people. So it's pretty much part of maybe our human fabric. But every business has somebody who is making somebody feel imperfect, putting somebody down. Now, the trouble is, too often, we just don't know how to handle it. I withdraw most, a lot of the human resource teaching doesn't handle it. Because if it did handle it, we wouldn't be having it as much as we have now. We have youth suicide on the rise, we have domestic violence on the rise, and if people leave work at the end of the day feeling harassed, feeling put down, feeling negative, all they've got to do at home is to share that out with the people. And so what can you expect but more and more disenfranchised people? So the trouble is we don't know how to handle it, the first thing. And the second thing is, yes, Rex is a bully, but the clients love him. If we were to lose Rex, we could lose the clients. So we put up with Rex. Rex is a bully, but he's the only person who knows how to get that machine working that sometimes is temperamental. And if we didn't have Rex, then we could have breakdowns on the production line, and we might not meet our targets. And so we make all kinds of excuses for letting people with these behaviours come back to work tomorrow. So that's management. Leadership is about saying, well, if I let Rex come back tomorrow and he is doing this kind of illegal, unsafe behaviour with the staff, I am actually authorising him. I'm paying him, hello Rex, come in, bully away, and by the way, here's your pay at the end of the week. That's lacking duty of care. But it's not, again, none of this is about bad people. It's about behaviours, and it's about not knowing. Well, leadership if you engage, no one hires a bully. They hire someone who they think is right for the job. A whole range of things happen when that person's in the job that turns them into being not as helpful in the job. So picking it up through performance management, picking it up through open, effective communications will almost always solve the bullying. So we don't manage them out, we work to fix the situation. South Australian law requires that workshops are held to address this kind of behaviour. Very often they're not. Very often all this had in those workshops is, here is the law, not how to change the behaviour. And so we need to work on that very much. Leadership is connectedness, respect. 1 plus a number. If it's 1 plus a number and we have a better outcome, I'm going to go home at the end of the day feeling energised, feeling respected. I'm going to have hope in my heart and an ability to work with my family to make our life rich and rewarding. So in order to achieve sustainable connectedness, one must take self-responsibility in providing the foundation of trust and respect. New ways to demonstrate to the team, to stakeholders, the genuine desire to collaborate. Behaviours you can see. I might leave it there, Mustafa. We have about 10 minutes, I think, left. Are there any questions coming through at the stage?
Well, fantastic session, Rex. I mean, you've shared some amazing insights, and thank you for clarifying what is and isn't leadership, and for explaining the difference between that and a manager. You know, I really liked how you said leadership is focused on getting people on board and using the full force of the team to identify and achieve, obviously, certain team goals. And I also really like the fact that there needs to be an overlap between management and leadership. It's not one or the other. It's actually a combination, strategically combined or overlapped to achieve the desired outcome. You know, what really resonated with me, Rex, was the emphasis on managing expectations, strategically communicating, and not shooting people down, crisis management, being honest, prioritizing, delegating, consistency, and recognition, and even rewarding people. These cannot be overstated. I'm sure you can tell that I've been taking notes, Rex. But you know, I would like to now turn to Q&A. So I've actually got some pre-prepared questions that have come through earlier, which I would like to ask. And for those of you who would like to basically chat or enter the chat room, or if you'd like to raise your hand and talk, you're more than welcome to do so. Until we get such questions, what I might do, actually, we do have a question that have come through from Justin Pearce. What did Brenton Sanderson have to gain by noting his leadership failures? Really good question from Justin.
Justin, it's a good and interesting question. What he had to gain was self-respect. He had done quite a few good things for that club, and then he was chucked out chucked into the bin, and he suffered very badly because he put a huge amount of effort in, and through, I don't know the answer to this part. I don't know how he came to the realization of the things that let him down, but he did, and then he dared say it out loud. In fact, he dared say it in print. So he dared say, hello, I'm human and I made these mistakes. Now, I would say that would have been very much helpful to his recovery, to him seeing himself, to building his self-esteem again, because often we'll find scapegoats. We'll blame the chairman, or we'll blame the players, or we'll blame the other coaches. He didn't. He said, these are things I did wrong. Congratulations, Brenton. Is that okay, Justin?
Fantastic. Thank you, Rex. Another question that I've got here, Rex, is as the principal or owner or managing director or senior manager, how do I get useful feedback on my style? You know, what are the, you know, what do you think of the 360-degree feedback? And is it okay to feel vulnerable or to be vulnerable?
Yeah.
Which we've seen Brenton, obviously Sanderson, clearly demonstrated.
That's right. Well, of course, being vulnerable is definitely leadership. Saying, I don't know, or I'll have a better answer when you and I speak. Being vulnerable, not pretending you have all the answers, is leadership. Your question, excellent question. I don't know that we are necessarily that good at analysing ourselves. I think we can either pretend we are wonderful or we can beat up on ourselves, and either is probably not very helpful. I don't believe in 360-degree feedback. And I know it's been written by famous people and there's books about it. I just don't believe it. What I do know is people who are disconnected, and on the 80-20 in a team, at least 80% of people are going to be less connected than the 20 who are connected, who are in the limelight. They won't say things in the 360 they should because they're not in favour. So they have mortgages to pay, and they have a career to look after. The boss has never come around to ask me the question. The boss has never come into a session of mine. He's never come around to my workstation. And now he's saying, I should say to him, you never do these things. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to pretend it's all okay. So I've never, and I've been involved in, I don't know, dozens of companies where they've shown me the 360-degree feedback as they walk around with their chest pumped out, and at the same time have high absenteeism, low morale, and difficulty in keeping staff. So I don't believe it's the case. The other question, I guess, is what do I think does work? Well, if you can just go over my presentation today and define a lot of that, that works.
Fantastic. And we see there's a lot of psychometric tools out there. You know, you've got your Myers-Briggs, you got DISC, you got Gallup. I mean, we know there are, you know, they've definitely got their fans. I personally like a couple of them. You know, are there pros and cons, and is there a preference for you personally?
Yes, it's a really good question. I'm thinking about how I answer it, because again, I've just sort of been a bit negative about 360 degrees, which comes out in print, and it might even be a book in your bookshelf behind you. And here I am, just Rex Buckingham. I do know. You might have heard of a fellow called Stephen Jobs. Now, Stephen is known because he was the Apple, not the originator, but the person who got Apple up and going, whilst his mate did all the inventing. And he was rude and arrogant and horrible and disrespectful and dirty. And he sat on the board table at IBM in no shoes on and hadn't washed his feet. And I had a managing director who was rude and horrible. And he said to me one day when I was talking about emotional intelligence, he said, Rex, he said, why are you telling me to think about people? Have you read the Stephen Jobs book? Look at what Stephen Jobs, how Stephen Jobs behaved. Well, that's okay. Well, when you're as rich as Stephen Jobs, when you have as much other capacity as Stephen Jobs, maybe you can do that. But right now, if you want to value people, you'll value them through being a leader and doing leadership behaviours. So I don't find much time for any psychometric tool, because this particular leader said to me, if you read my Myers-Briggs analysis, you will find out that's the kind of person I am. And I said, okay, were you that kind of person in kindergarten? He said, what do you mean? I said, were you that kind of person in the kindergarten? He says, well, I suppose I was. And were you that kind of person in grade 5? Were you that kind of person when you went to university? Oh, no, you've just become that kind of person. So therefore, you can become another kind of person. So stop hiding behind, that's the kind of person I am. And I used to own a recruitment company, Mr. O'Fern, and I can hear people telling me what they can't do, jobs they couldn't do because their psychometric test said they couldn't do it. And if you want to be the manager looking at a psychometric test, you better go away and do a course to understand how to analyze it and how to read it, or you'll just choose from it the things you want to choose from it. So quick answer is no. I don't hold up any of them as being the only tool.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rex. We've got a question from Alex here. I agree with your 360 comments. Rex, do you think the biggest mistake is firms don't employ outside consultants to conduct the 360 surveys so that people can actually be honest and have trust?
Thank you, Alex. My vision at Colour Thinking is to become redundant to my client. And so the way I'd handle that, and it's a very good question, is I would help the business to understand how to go about leadership so they could actually get feedback in such a way that was much more genuine, and develop a tool that was much more genuine and accessible, not involving me face to face or involved with the individuals, but developing the leadership of the team to be able to do it more effectively. But the essence of the question, I guess, is does it need somebody from outside to see that's necessary? And I think that's right.
Brilliant. Moving over now to more individual, again, focusing on individuals here. What are the best ways to encourage individuals to drive leadership behaviours?
I have a suite called, I call the Foundations Suite of communication. And the first one in that is ALALA, ask, listen, ask, listen, ask. So if if I identify in myself that I'm becoming a bit command and control, and it's inside all of us, particularly when we're passionate, and I want to say make a better relationship with you, Mustafa, I will make sure I ask you a question, and when you answer my question, I will ask you a question about your answer. Whereas the usual communication model is I ask, I listen, and I tell, or I respond. Another word for tell. And so if your self-esteem is a bit low, or my position in life is a bit higher, I will never hear from you what you have to say. So I will ask you and I'll listen, and I'll ask you and I'll listen, and I'll ask you and I'll listen. And by that stage, you will know I'm genuinely wanting to know what you're going to say, and you will be daring to share more with me. That's only step one in my foundational skills. The others are even more exciting.
Yeah, so what you're saying is you need to be genuinely connected to people in order to empower them, or in order to feel empowered, with to drive that leadership behaviour.
Yes, that's right.
Fantastic. We've got a question from Chris. Really, really good question, important question in my view. What are the skills needed for real collaboration, real engagement, particularly from team members?
If I look back over my career in recruitment and in consulting, I would say I've rarely acted on the question I've been given by the client. So the client might say, I want you to come into our business and address this situation, or I want you to hire someone for this position. And I'd say at least as much, 80% of the time, the work I end up doing is not the work I was asked for. So collaboration, if we're not careful, and in fact, tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, I'm sitting down with the client to do a SWOT analysis. And the first thing I'll be saying to him is, let's make sure we understand what we're going to do the SWOT on. What will the objective of the SWOT be? Will it be too big and we won't be getting anything out of it, or can we make it more minute and use it to sort of bounce off of? So hopefully answering the question, it's about, in collaboration, it's about not taking people down a particular laneway, wanting them always to be responding to the initial conversation, but for them to use the initial conversation as a sounding board, 1 plus a number equals greater than the sum of the number, to see, in fact, are we even addressing the right question? So the collaboration can come out with an answer that's pertinent rather than an answer to the wrongly formed question. I hope that answered it, Chris. Mustafa has my phone number. I'm more than happy to talk to you about all these questions at any time, at no charge to anybody. Fantastic.
That's a great offer, Rex. I think I'll definitely be taking you up on that offer. And one final question before, and I know a lot of people are, who have joined us, and thank you to everyone who's joined us. It's probably hungry and wants to go and eat and have some dinner. But last question: if there was one word or one gold nugget that you can provide us with before we go away and have our dinner about leadership, what would that be, Rex?
Be honest with people. Be honest with people, care for them, and be respectful, but don't let that muddy the conversation you have with them. Let people walk away from you having a conversation knowing exactly what it was you were talking about, and with enough capacity for them to have useful feedback and interaction. Honesty. Brilliant.
I love it. Thank you so much, Rex. This brings us to an end for this session. It's been an absolute privilege to hear from a respected leader of 40 plus years. It has been an absolute honor, Rex, to listen to you. I always enjoy my coffee catch up with you, our breakfast, our lunch, and you've talked on a topic that is that I would consider as one of my favourites. Thank you for highlighting the importance of being a good leader. You've demonstrated that today. With what you've shared, you've shown that there are successful leadership models out there, in essence, to drive a successful team engagement. To our audience, I hope you've all enjoyed tuning in and have enjoyed today's session. To our students, staff, academics, and everyone else that's watching the recording, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks very much.